Could this be the last gas can that you personally ever buy? Well, it might just very well be. And surprisingly enough, it's not all of that expensive. Stay with me as we take a look at it. We talk about some of the other gas cans, and we'll even take a look on the inside of this and see how well it's built. Now, I have had all kinds of makes and brands of gas cans, and I seem to struggle with them. I don't really know why. I don't know if it's just my luck. It seems like nozzles like these seem to spill more gas than I'm able to actually get in the device. You can buy these aftermarket nozzles, and they work pretty well, but the two cans in the front have some flaws, and I want to talk about them. Now this is your typical plastic gas can, pretty common. There's nothing special about it. I believe the brand is a Briggs & Stratton on this one. It's been around a while, so I really can't fault it too much. The plastic is a standard HDPE, but the problem I have with plastic cans is over time, they give me issues. This particular one kind of has a weird bubble in the back. I can press it in and feel another layer inside. It's starting to degrade around the corner. It bothered me, so I quit using it and I replaced it with a more traditional can. This can is not that old. But it has a crack that started from here down. I actually have two of these cans and the other one did the same thing. I do put these in the pickup truck. They do get a little bit of sun and that may be what caused this, but anyhow, it cracked right here. So I'm afraid to use these anymore. So I decided to look for a metal one. I thought that might last a little bit longer, at least in my situation. So I happened to be in the local Harbor Freight this weekend because they had a pretty good sale, and I just looked down and seen they had these metal jerry cans, and I thought, I think I'm going to try one of those. Now, without geeking out too much about this can, I do want to point out where it's made, and I want to point out why it is such a good can, and we'll look at some of those features here in a second. The first thing you're going to notice is the V that's stamped in the side, and that's because the can itself is made by Valpro. Now, Valpro has been making the NATO cans since World War I. They started out in Germany and they moved their factory over to Latvia, and that is where they have been making them ever since. They still make those cans, and this is kind of a variant of the NATO can. There's a few things that are different for the civilian folks like us. However, the can itself has pretty much the same construction and it's built in the same quality that Valpro makes the NATO cans. That's kind of a bonus. The company that sells these cans is Midwest Can Company. They're out of Illinois, and most of their cans are made right here in the USA. The spouts are made in Canada, and this does have one of those no-spill spouts, but this one's a little better, and we'll talk about why here in a second. You can buy generic versions of this can all day and all night on eBay and Amazon and basically all over the internet. However, those cheaper cans weigh in right around 6 pounds, 5.5 pounds, and you'll notice that the welds are not recessed like this. And also the handles on top, they flex where this one does not, and they're not welded on like these are. These have a full weld all the way across the front and the sides and a full weld all the way across the back. Some of the cheaper cans, I've seen complaints where the handles rip off. You're not going to rip the handles off these. They're too well built. The seam is recessed, and you can see that all the way from the top all the way to the bottom, if you were to lay this can on its face, you're not going to put any pressure on that seam. So if it's laying around in the back of your pickup truck and it accidentally rolls on its face or side, you're not going to hurt it because it's just going to lay on its side. It's not going to kill that seam. The seams seem to be welded really well. I do want to take a look inside and see if it's coated, because the original NATO cans are coated inside to keep them from rusting, and the cheaper cans that you can buy online have just steel inside. Basically, you keep the fuel in them to keep it from rusting, and if they see a lot of moisture and air, they will rust. But let's get a camera in here. We'll take a look inside and see what it looks like. Now, I've got a camera on the inside of this can that is looking at the back side of the lettering, and you can see there's an amber coating on everything. There's no bare metal, and that's pretty important because what that does is it keeps the can from rusting. The NATO cans that are made for the military have this very same coating on the inside. So now that we know this thing pretty much looks and smells like a NATO can other than the color, the case is the same, the metal's the same, it's the same gauge, everything's welded the same, the seam is the same. It pretty much is a NATO can with one exception, and that's the spout. The spout is what's different. It's designed for civilians. There is an insert in here. A lot of people think it's a strainer, but it's actually part of the Flame Shield safety system. I will put a link down below because I'm not a scientist. I don't know how that operates, but the company has done a very good video explaining what the importance of this is. Also, it would act as a strainer if you ask me. But these use the standard type nozzles that everybody hates with a catch. These are a little bit better. We're going to talk about that. I absolutely despise the new spouts the EPA requires us to use. I will say that Midwest has a patent on one that's a little more tolerable than most. It's pretty simple. Once you pull the spout out, you want to pull this red cap off like any other can. Flip this around, put your ring back on. You guys know the drill here. Of course, this becomes your cap. But normal spouts have multiple different functions. Some you have to twist and shove down. They're just a royal pain. This company, you just press this button here one time and it's ready to pour. That allows this to collapse. And then when it's released again, it locks again. Now, if you need to store your spout and pour this like any other can, you can shove it in this little holder here. And then once it clips in there, it isn't going to go anywhere. Now, I filled this can up with about 3.5 gallons of bad gas out of my boat. I'm going to take it down to the recycler and have them dispose of it properly. But I did want to put it in this can and pour it into this bucket so you could watch the flow and see how fast it flows for yourself. Now, these spouts have a built-in vent, so they do gurgle. That's perfectly normal. But what you want to be watching is just how fast the fuel is coming out. It's obviously not going to come out as fast as a vented can, but again, because of the EPA, we don't have that option unless we modify the can itself. So what you do is press the red button, one click, it's ready to pour. We're going to rest this little guy right here on the lip of the bucket, and I want you to watch how fast the fuel flows out of it. We have no leaks. It's sealed pretty good. It's a good spout. Set it on the lip, and there you go. Now you can hear the gurgling, but it's still flowing at a really good rate. That is a pretty good flow. I think I would be happy with that if not modifying the spout or the gasoline jug was not an option. When you're done, you just lift up on the spout and that stops the fuel from flowing. That part's kind of handy. And you're ready to flip it over, put your dust cap on it, or flip this whole thing over and seal it back up, whatever you prefer. So how's the saying go? If it's good enough for the government, it's good enough for me. Well, maybe in today's crazy world, we shouldn't say silly things like that. I don't know. What I do know is it's a really good can, and it is now my favorite gas can. As my cans fail, I'm going to replace them with these guys. I'm going to head right to Harbor Freight and replace them. I think they're a great can. They're going to last a very long time. They're very well built, obviously well thought out, because the can itself has been used since World War I. If you like these types of videos, please like and subscribe. Take a look at some of my other videos. At the very least, you might be entertained.